Welcome to the Start Somewhere podcast, the show that empowers women through mindset and manifestation. I'm your host, life and business mentor, Isabelle Prestia. And through my personal stories and insightful episodes, I help you fight fear, cultivate confidence, and feel empowered. If you're looking to live life on your terms, feel successful, and create abundance, you must first become a high-value woman. Luckily, this podcast shows you how to start, whether it's building a business, manifesting your dream partner, and becoming emotionally and financially fulfilled. So, are you ready to take the first step towards creating your reality? Let's start somewhere together.
Hey, how are you, Isabelle? It's good to see you.
Guys, I'm very well, thank you. How are you going?
Yeah, good. I've been looking forward to today.
Likewise, I was actually going through our emails and noticed that we've been messaging since like October last year. Because you emailed me and I was just about to leave for Europe. And I was looking through the other day, I'm like, wow, that's a blast from the past.
Well, that's actually a good thing, isn't it? It shows we really actually do want to talk to each other.
Louise Bedford is a best-selling author and trading mentor. And in today's show, Louise and I are going to be sharing a conversation all on money mindset. Louise, welcome to Start Somewhere.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure to be here.
I really want to direct this conversation through the lens of the importance of a money mindset. I know your background is mentoring in trading, and I think I know so many of the women listening are so into, becoming this independent figure and creating this wealth for themselves. And I speak so much on money mindset and being this wealthy woman, especially in a lot of my programs. So I feel this is like a really juicy kind of perspective to share on the podcast today. But before we start, Louise, I do have a couple of rapid fire questions I want to start the show with.
Perfect. Let's do it.
Amazing. So number one, so considering your style of work, so what is a money mindset you have shifted that has created the most positive shifts in your life?
Oh, that's a very good question. I think moving from scarcity to abundance, where there never seemed to be enough when I was growing up, but then really there is enough, and realizing that there's always more where that came from, that is probably the biggest change for me.
I love that. I want to unpack that, but I'll have another rapid fire question and we'll circle back around. So the second one is, what are some money habits that you used to have that you no longer have anymore?
Oh gosh, there are so many that actually spring to mind here. I used to hide money in pockets so that when I put my hand into a pocket and I'd find money, I'd get a little kick. I don't do that anymore. So I do think we have to think about where our dopamine rushes are coming from. But maybe I should continue doing that one, Isabelle. I think that does actually sound like a fun one.
That sounds like a really quirky thing that I would do. And I kind of want to do that. So was your mentality behind doing that as, giving yourself a little gift every time?
And just giving myself the idea that there's more where that came from as well, tying back into the first question. Probably the thing I do now, though, that I didn't realize the importance of, is that I always have a lot of cash on me. So in my purse, I'll have purposeful $100 bills, because when I look inside my purse, it makes me feel happy to know that if at any time I need to pull out some cash, I can. And I know we all have credit cards, but there's something special about seeing the actual money there that can trigger off that, hey, everything is fine, I am safe feeling.
Oh, I love everything you just shared. And I really want to come back to the whole scarcity versus abundance mindset. And I agree. It's something about seeing even a $50 bill. It just, I don't know about you, but you feel like it's more wealthy opposed to seeing $50 in a bank account, for example.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that is also to do with behavioural finance, that whenever we have something that is from a proximity point of view close to us, we value it more.
Right.
So if you can actually see things that are tangible, that can actually reinforce that cycle that it's okay, everything is fine, there'll be enough money for tomorrow, which I think as women we often are concerned about.
I love that. I feel so many of the women listening, myself included, it's, this, I speak a lot about, the whole scarcity versus abundance mindset. So I kind of want to go back and unpack this, especially like for my, for my selfish reasons as well. What have been, a couple key shifts that have helped you transition from that scarcity to abundant mindset?
I think money acts as a bit of an anesthetic. Once we do have enough money, we stop worrying so much about where the next dollar is going to come from, and we can think in terms of our future self. The difficulty with whenever we're deprived of something, we really focus on that. There was a study done just after World War II. They took people who volunteered for this, which, oh my gosh, I cannot imagine volunteering for this type of study. They looked at, it was all men at that stage, men, and they took them through a calorie deprivation for 18 months to try and work out how that scarcity can play on our mind and what we can do to perhaps play with our own brain to work out how do we overcome scarcity. And also they wanted to study prisoner of war recovery methods. So they restricted these people's calories. They were allowed to still walk around the town, and they were allowed to get coffee, but it was only black coffee because, of course, milk has some untold calories in it. And eventually, after just 3 weeks, those men fixated on food so much, they were dreaming about it, they were talking about it. Even when they showed them movies about things that were exotic locations, they didn't want to watch the movie because it interfered with them talking about food. They became so fixated on the thing that they couldn't have. And personally, I think that's what happens with money as well.
Yeah. And like, I feel like this is an interesting question. I'm not too sure if there's even an answer to this, but when it comes to creating this wealth, this abundance for us, what is deemed as quote unquote enough? Or what is, the appropriate number we should have in our bank account as, 25-year-old, then 26, then 27, then 30, then like 40, like, obviously it varies so much depending on the individual, their income, their expenditure, that kind of thing. But I feel, I can just think for the women listening now, and they're thinking like, oh, what is enough? And like we always want more, right? Like, and then as I feel as women, we're told that it's almost bad to want more and we shouldn't want more. And I just feel like, and I really like to challenge that whole like paradigm in a lot of my work and my coaching and my podcasting, because I just think it's so fine to want more and to affirm that and to be bold in that. But I know when it comes to money, like I'm not perfect. Like I still experience that as well. So yeah, like I'd love to just hear your insight on that.
Yeah, that is a great question. When I was in Vietnam, I had some lovely time there with the Hmong tribe, and they are the natives of Vietnam, and they are actually looked down upon from the other Vietnamese, which is just astounding, isn't it? That within their own country there is such levels of racism. And I remember walking through with the lady that I became such good friends with. Her name was Me, M-I, Me, and we met this lady who was a grandmother. She was the grandmother matriarch of the entire group of Me's family and also her village. Now, I was watching this grandmother. She was sitting down. The males and females of the group, all different ages, were catching like little bits of wood for kindling, and they were chopping down trees, and they was piling it up in a big pile in the middle of the village. And finally, this grandmother said, whatever it is in Vietnamese, I can't remember what the word was, but the word was enough, right? Everybody stopped. They went and thanked grandmother, and then they went back to their business. And I said to my friend Me, I said, look, what's the deal here? And she said, well, the grandmother has seen so many winters that she knows when there is enough wood collected for the entire village. She's made that assessment, and she said enough is enough. And what you're saying actually reminded me of that story, because so often we don't realize when we have enough, and we actually push ourselves beyond the point of burnout to keep on achieving and keep on stockpiling, and that can be unhealthy too. So even though I've written 5 books on the stock market, and even though I'm a big one for talking about money and accumulating wealth, I think we also have to value other aspects of our our life as well, and realize that sometimes the risk of continuing to chase the dollar is just not worth it, because we can actually have things like health effects and emotional effects, things that happen with our relationship that are really to the point of our detriment, where it's almost a self-sabotage if we continue to force ourselves to only honor the dollar as being our main currency of life. As especially as women, we have so many roles to play. Our currency is not just our appearance, it's not just how much money we can earn, it's how kind and compassionate we can be. What community service are we doing to spread that goodness inside us to people perhaps that don't have quite as much? It's how can we make an impact on the future generations, and what legacy can we leave people? What is our sphere of influence? So all of those are effective, I guess, currency that we can consider ourselves to grow into in terms of identity. So I do think, even though it is important from a financial sense, yes, we do need enough to support ourselves in our old age, for sure. We need enough to give to our children and to the people that we love, to look after our parents, to look after people that haven't had the skills and abilities that we have been gifted with. But we also, Isabelle, I think we have to remember that sometimes just the pursuit of the almighty dollar can be to our detriment.
I love that whole story. I love how that came from your experience in Vietnam. I've actually been to Vietnam as well quite a few years ago, and it's such a beautiful country.
It truly is. And that happened in Sapa, which is up in the hills. And it is quite amazing the difference between the cities and the hills with people's attitudes. So I learned so much from that lady, Me. I stayed in touch with her for quite a few years. She was incredible, 17 years old, supporting her family. She wasn't a girl. You notice I said lady, because at 17, she was totally fully formed in who she was. She knew exactly what she wanted out of life, and she was going and getting out there and getting it, which I just loved. Yeah, I'm glad you liked Vietnam.
Yeah, and that's a huge thing of what I love about travel, kind of getting off topic here, but when you can just meet other people like your experience with me, and you learn so much, maybe not them teaching you indirectly, but that just those other things you can learn, that's my favorite. I adore it so much. So I
Yeah, me
want
too, me
to,
too. And that is why money's good too. We need money to be able to have those experiences.
exactly. And I feel like, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to articulate this question properly, but I resonate 1000% with everything you just shared. It's really interesting you shared that also, because a big, mission and focus of my year last year was abundance, and really focusing on feeling so, financially, or just feeling so stable in every area of my life. And that's what my whole mission was. And it was really interesting because I got to the end of the last year, and I actually spoke about this on a recent podcast. The listeners tuning in, they may remember me saying this. And, I found stability in every area of my life but my finances. And, it was my emotional stability, my mental stability, my physical, my health, my, who I am as a person. I'm so sure of myself. I'm so rock solid. I'm so, proud of the healthy habits and all these kind of things. But, starting out as a business, I'm still very much in my first year of business, and, it's that rocky kind of thing. And, I've learned to make peace with it. But at the same time, I was saying I want stability, but I haven't got there yet. But then it wasn't until I really reflected back and I realized how far I've come, who I am as a person, who I've evolved into. I was like, I would rather have stability in every other area of my life if it meant not having money yet. Because who wants to have all this money but just be so an absolute roller coaster, right? No friendships, no relationships, no nothing. So I'm I really feel, I'm not sure if you agree, but I feel that kind of resonates with what you shared. It's looking at that abundance around us. It doesn't have to be this
It
dollar
is.
value all the time.
And I think sometimes we forget to be grateful for where we've come to. What you've talked about is actually the psychological comparison of future self. So you've looked into the future, you've worked out the type of person you want to be, and it's almost like a golden thread. It's taking you from where you are now to who that person is. I think that is wonderful. The other type of comparisons that we can make is upward and downward comparisons. And this is where this is kind of an interesting area, actually, because I've got 4 years of psychology behind me, and I tend to look at the share market as a big psychological mirror. So with upward comparisons, what we're doing when we're actually flicking through on Instagram or Facebook or whatever your tool of choice is to compare yourself with others unfavorably, we are looking at people with their looks, with their hair, with their money, with their assets, with their relationships, with their holidays, with their family, all these things that make us envious, and we are coming up short. Now, the good part about that is it helps us define our priorities. We know if we're feeling that niggly sense of jealousy, that is actually important to us. We have something there telling us, hey, this is important. Look over here, because you'd better pay attention to this because they have got that and you don't. So there's a somewhat of a lack involved there, inspiring ambition. But then we also have the useful place of downward comparisons. That's where we look at perhaps people on social, but not so much because they're posting their highlight reel, and usually we're comparing our worst day with their highlights. Maybe one of our friends, maybe somebody that we've heard of, maybe the friend of a friend, where we go, well, at least I'm not doing, and insert unfavorable comparison with that person. So at least my hair doesn't look like that. At least I'm not in that job. At least I've got an education and they haven't. At least I'm living in this house or in this suburb, or I've got that person in my life or that partner and they haven't. So what does that do? That gives us encouragement to know that we're on the right path, that something that we've worked on has been valued enough by us to realize the other person does not have that. So both comparisons are useful, but we have to watch it with balance. What you've described, the way that you've painted that, where you've applied that future self achieving balance in every area, do you know what? Finances are the last part to catch up, Isabelle.
Oh, that's good to know.
They really are. You will work on yourself, work so hard to improve all of your contacts, all of your skill sets, all of the stacking that is required to be a worthwhile person. And finally, the money will come. And often we think it's going to be the first thing, and it is just not. Your level of financial independence will rarely exceed the level that you have of self-worth.
That gives me chills. I think I agree with everything you just shared. I think, it's also that piece of being able to hold more abundance and really stepping out into my business as well. The amount of money mindset work I did, which I didn't even know existed when I was in the 9-to-5 world. Like, I had no idea this was even a thing. And yeah, like, it's been such a fun thing for me to learn about. I love it. And this is a really perfect transition. I'd love to chat. What is your definition of a wealthy woman money mindset?
I often think we need to come up with our own definitions because different people will value different aspects of their life. For me, being able to say no is a real key. So being able to say no to an unreasonable request, a demand by a boss, being able to say no to the fact that I don't actually want to work for somebody else and I know that. So no, I don't want that. And being able to have those choices in life so that you can not only enrich yourself, but enrich those around you. When I was 19, I went to a function and they talked about developing a personal mission. And I wrote a personal mission at that function that I still hold today. It is something that's very dear to me. One of those aspects in that mission was to inspire others by leading by example. Now, that to me is an aspect of developing wealth, not necessarily just financial wealth, but we're talking about wealth that is skill set oriented, that is mindset oriented, that is significant enough so that you can share it with others and help them make changes in their life.
So what I'm kind of hearing is, first of all, I love your mission. A big part of my mission a year ago, which I, still very much is with me, is be the change. So, don't just preach and do all these things, but not do anything. Lead by example. So that sounds kind of similar to yourself. But what I'm kind of hearing is it's kind of like this holistic approach to money, to abundance, to wealth. And I think for the women listening, it's I speak all about, self-investment, whether that is just enriching our minds with a new book, a podcast, a conversation, learning something new. It's like that is all part of the piece of this abundance. Is that kind of, am I on the right track?
Absolutely. I'm loving the way you put that. The whole thing is a massive jigsaw puzzle, and every so often the picture that you're trying to build changes and you have to adjust, you have to make those adjustments on the fly. It is interesting as well that you're so young and you've already worked out so many aspects, and I love that. And the thing that I think I'm really hearing from you is that you've put in the effort and you've put in the work to discover this amazing arena of abundance. And that is a real key. So many people just sit there on a couch, watch Netflix, and they don't really probe and question and use that introspection to be able to bring the most out of themselves. Actually, I've got a bit of fascinating research and I'd love your thoughts on this.
Of course.
There's a concept called introception. Now, some people say it interoception, depends on how you pronounce. Now, what it is, it's being aware of your own body and the things that are going on inside your skin. So, my area is stock market and trading. Now, good traders have a very heightened level of interoception. What they are aware of is their heart rate changing, their stomach turning over and making gurgles. It is interesting to see that level of body awareness translates to objectivity. So they are aware of themselves, they push back a little bit from that, and then they make objective decisions. Now, I want you, Isabelle, I hope you don't mind me turning your podcast into a counseling session for you, but I want you to be aware of what your body is telling you, Isabelle, because you are going in the right direction. You are totally pursuing an area that is not only a passion for you, but it's also going to lead you into something that can be fulfilling long term. So when you're learning about topics, listen to your body, listen to what it is saying, because if you hone that skill, not only will it help you beat stress, get a better sleep, be more aware of what your true intent is, but it's also more likely to lead you in the direction that you need to be going. And it's tuning that ability to be aware. That's what yoga does. That's what meditation does. That's what healthy eating does. It's that holistic approach of being aware of what your signals are and trusting yourself that you're going in the right direction. And I guess that's one of the key messages that I'd like to relay in this chat is this is a message of hope. The majority of the time, you have everything it takes to excel. You just have to surround yourself with good people, be prepared to do the work, and be prepared to listen to the role of a mentor in your life, or perhaps this podcast could even be your mentor. Get the information in and then act on it.
Oh my gosh, that was so powerful. Thank you, Louise, for sharing all of that. I want to chat as well on the topic of money scripts. I know this was a conversation we're having as well prior to recording, and I'd love to just hear your insight on this.
Money scripts are so important. So what a money script is, it's an intergenerational script that is passed down from your grandparents to your parents to you, and probably to your children. It's interesting, isn't it? How even though we're not even aware of the things that we are taught, we pick up so much in that early childhood. Now, done a lot of research on this. I'll give you perhaps an example. With my own background, I remember my grandmother saving plastic bags because plastic bags, they're so rare and so useful, and we have to wash them out and continue reusing them. My mum did the same, and then I find myself doing the same thing too. Those really good Ziploc bags, oh my gosh, we can buy Ziploc bags now. They're not expensive, but it's almost like that concept has been passed down, and I am still using my behavior to represent that script. Now, clearly, your script probably won't be plastic bags, but it could be scarcity. It could be it's okay to spend when you're upset. It could be I have to hide purchases from my husband because my husband could be judgmental. It could be I have to give everything to my children and deprive myself because otherwise that isn't love. That's not love. If you indulge in yourself, my gosh, your children will think that they're not cared for. So some of those scripts can be so insidiously private that we're not even aware that we have them. And the thing that I feel everybody needs to do, myself included, is make those scripts explicit. Spell them out. I write about them. I say, what do I think about money? Money is, my best lessons about money came from. My family thinks money is. My mother says money is. My father says money does. And really, if you can, make those money scripts really clear. I'll give you perhaps a little story, Isabelle, and I don't know if you can relate to this because I don't know enough about your background, but I'm very willing to listen. I remember one time when I was a child, we were in a very nice suburb, which was unusual because, 4 kids and perhaps not brought up with a lot of money. A beautiful car drove past. And I said to Mum, look at that car, it is gorgeous. And she said, oh yes, that's a Ferrari. And I said, ooh, that's so pretty. And she said, yes, it's probably drug dealers driving that car. Now, clearly, the odds of them being drug dealers, it's maybe 5%, but that got into my head that if somebody is driving an expensive car, it could be that those people are bad. They're taking advantage of people in some way. Now, that can become a money script. And if I didn't become aware of that, I would pass that on to my 2 children. So I've been very purposeful and focused on telling my kids that good people have money and good people with money do good things, and pointing out examples in the community. What are your thoughts, Isabelle? I'd love to hear your views on money scripts.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I've done something similar when I did a lot of money work, working through like my subconscious blocks. And yeah, I got clear on what both my parents' money beliefs were, complete opposite. Mum was so abundant and spending freely and wanting to give to people and give to us, whereas dad was saying, the classic money doesn't grow on trees. We have no money, we're broke. So I was really in this 50-50. But I'm grateful for my self-awareness where I could realize what dad said wasn't the truth. And I could see how mum spent was, I would love to be more like that and have like this really abundant money mindset. And yeah, I don't think I've ever really been somebody who's seen people with lots of money as being bad or evil. I think that was probably definitely a script I heard when I was younger. But, I look at wealthy people and I love it for them. I think it's amazing because I know that will be me and that is a reflection of me. So, when I do see fancy cars or even, if I'm traveling and I see people flying first class and, they're just looking this certain, quote unquote, rich kind of way, like I don't get jealous or think, oh, like fuck them for doing this or whatever it may be. I'm like, that's me, like that's going to be me next. And I get inspired and I get excited by it. But like, I want people to know, like, I wasn't always like this. It was something I trained myself to do. And now I hear people talk about, even in business, and people have incredible wins and making all this money. I'm like, I fucking love to hear that. Like, I love that so much because there's just it's just a complete waste of time, my time anyway, being jealous and resentful and being like, oh, they got more money than me, like blah, blah, blah. Hi ladies, just interrupting this podcast episode real quick to ask you this question. Do you want to transform your relationship with money and unlock your wealthy woman mindset? I have completely unraveled and gone down the rabbit hole of money mindset. And guys, the transformational shifts I've received from doing specific journal prompts and money mindset affirmations have brought about tens of thousands of dollars into my life. I'm not even joking. If this sounds exciting, then you are going to want to check out my free money mindset journal prompts. These are designed to help you shift your limiting beliefs around money and step into a more abundant and successful version of yourself. To get these prompts, sign up to Society Mail, which is my email list exclusively for high value women who want to live life on her own terms, feel successful, and create abundance. You will not only get instant access to the money mindset journal prompts, but you will also receive weekly tips and inspiration to help grow your business and elevate your mindset. So what are you waiting for, my love? Sign up for Society Mail today for free and get your free copy of a female entrepreneur's playbook. Unlock your wealthy woman mindset.
Absolutely. I think everything that you've said there, you've trained yourself. So you first of all became aware, and then you worked out how to scaffold yourself into the position that you wanted to be in. And you can see the gift in abundance. You can see the gift in examples. And that is a beautiful thing. I always think that there are positive and negative examples that we can learn from. And just by having that aspiration, you're one step closer to being able to achieve it. So good for you. That's a beautiful thing. I love it.
Yeah, I like I shared before, like money mindset, it's such an expensive topic. It just fascinates me so much. And when you can really unlock this, money, this abundant mindset, it's just what's out there is like incredible. It's life-changing.
Yeah, there are so many biases though. There are so many cognitive biases that stand in our way. I'll give you perhaps an example. The one that I think is hilarious is information aversion. Now, this can really put the kibosh on you moving forward in your life. It's when things are going well, then we constantly look for news about that thing. For example, in the share market, in my field, if the market's going up, people check their positions so often and they go, oh, that's so exciting. And they look for the news on that and they talk to their friends about it and they immerse themselves in all of this rhetoric that may or may not be true about that particular share. But when things are going badly, they shun information and they say, I'm not going to look at my portfolio. I'll just put that under the bed. That one doesn't count. Yeah. Oh, that was one that I had from years ago. I'll just leave that alone. They shun every aspect to do with that painful reality that they have created for themselves. Now, this can apply in so many areas. I find it happens in people's career, where if somebody's gone well in that position or that job, or perhaps your aspirational job or your firm, you go, well, it's okay for them. If you've ever said to yourself, well, it's okay for them, that is a form of information aversion. And we have to guard against that. This Carol Dweck concept of having a growth mindset is so important. If we have a fixed mindset, we say, it's okay for them, I'll never be able to do it. My IQ is at the maximum. I'll never learn more. Who I am is who I am. If you've ever heard anybody say that, that is a problem. We need to pursue a growth mindset. So a growth mindset is happy for other people's abilities and ambitions. A growth mindset says, I can't do this yet. And the word yet is so important. Yeah. I find it in my kids. I've got a 20-year-old and a 15-year-old, and I've totally brainwashed them into having a growth mindset. So it's fun being a parent with that. The brainwashing that goes on behind the scenes is lovely. So having that growth mindset will let us realize that who we are now is not who we're going to be in 5 years' time, and that there is room enough at the top for everybody. It doesn't have to be just that special person. And if one person has done it, then you can do it as well. So what you're doing with your podcast is really indoctrinating people's mindsets to lean towards that growth mindset, which I think is such a wonderful, noble aim.
And yeah, like I love what you see in other people. It's just a reflection of exactly what's possible for you.
That's it.
It's
Yes.
yeah, the time
It's
management.
hard to do to begin with because I think from a competitive point of view, often we think there can only be one winner.
Yeah.
And there is more than one winner in this, and you can make your own arena as well. It doesn't have to be that you become the CEO of your company and that is how you win. It can be that you've chosen to pursue an area where you can feel like you are at the top as well. It doesn't have to be the traditional focused areas that our parents told us we had to pursue. And I
Yeah.
think that can foul us up sometimes.
Yeah, I agree. I think make it about being the best version of yourself, no matter what that looks like on a material front or a job title. It's all titles and labels, you know, in a relationship, single, own a house, rent a house, live at home, have a certain title at work. Like, take all those titles away. Who are you as a human being? And like, let that be the mountain that you climb.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I think so many people don't realize that, and they bend themselves out of shape because they think they should
Oh my God.
achieve a certain level, especially by a certain age.
Oh,
I need to be at this level by this age. And there is a biological reason for that for females, especially. We do have that biological evolutionary need to procreate. Now, what that does is it forces us into an arena where we think we have to get things done before we have our children.
yeah.
And it is such a shame. I see people cap their own potential because they think too far ahead. I remember I was in a multinational company and I was a national manager and at a significant level where people turned to me for advice. And this many years ago. I've been a share trader since 1995 full time. So yes, a long time ago. But I do remember a lass who came to work for me. She was a little bit younger than me, not that much. And she said, look, I really can't take that promotion because I want to have a child one day. I said, are you having a child this year? And she said, oh, no, I'm thinking in 10 years' time. I said, is your partner putting pressure on you to have a child? No, I don't even have a partner. Oh my gosh, she was capping her potential because in 10 years' time, she might have a baby. And I see that time and time again. We need to, as women, realize that we have got every ability to continue earning money, to
Yeah.
continue focusing on our future and our passions. Having kids does not stop us in our tracks. I wrote all of my books after having children. I've traded in the stock market when I was single, when I was married, when I didn't have children, when I did have children, when my children were babies, when my children are practically grown-ups. And you don't have to stop because you have that artificial biological cap that we put on ourselves as women. I don't know if I've gone too far here for your audience, Isabel.
Oh,
Give me
I'm
some
following.
feedback.
No. I feel like this is all really relating. And it's so interesting you talk about the whole motherhood piece essentially. I've been listening to so many podcasts of business owners and they're talking about the transition of still being an entrepreneur whilst being a mum. And, you know, not that that's in my super near future, but I am actually starting to think about I kind of can't wait to be a mum and have children and like what is that going to look like for me in my business? And it's so interesting you say that. I feel like I need to get a move on and get shit rolling when that happens. But in fact, I'm nowhere near ready for that at all. But I'm just already thinking like, well, I better do all my things now because, you know, by the time I'm 30, who knows where I'm going to be and what's going to be happening. So it's good to know that I'm not going crazy.
Yeah, the best is yet to come. That is almost like a pre-programmed physiological need. So to recognize it, to articulate it, and to bring it out, I think is so important. When I first wrote my book, Trading Secrets, so this is probably the key general book that people use to get ahead in the stock market. You can see this current version is on the 3rd edition. But when I wrote my first edition of it, I do remember I had my little bubba asleep on the floor and then would wake up and look at me adoringly, and there I am typing because I had to get it all out. And it was so nice to see with the 2nd edition my little kid had grown up a little bit and was running around. And with the third edition, time ticks on. So I kind of think of this as my little maturing baby throughout the years, watching my own child, my eldest, grow up as I wrote versions of this book. And of course, as my other books came along, my other child came along as well. And how lovely. And I do think as well, I'm just not going to leave this topic alone just for a minute, okay? We have found that when we actually look at the research, the females that are striving, that have their own goals, maybe they have their own career, but maybe if it's a stay-at-home mother situation, maybe they have made that their own role. These are the women that are inspiring the next generation to not only be more effective in their own relationships and have a lower divorce rate, but also those children of those women who are striving are ones who help out more around the house. And we know that having that combined relationship where both partners in a relationship are helping with household chores leads to a lower divorce rate. The stats are very clear on this. If you're a mother, strive, have some things of your own, have a separate area just for you, away from the family, away from the kids, that you can pursue, and you are actually doing exactly the right thing by your children and by your family.
It's that piece of, in a relationship, let your passion, your purpose, even your career and yourself, like I believe anyway, put all those things first.
I do too. I think there's a lot to be said for valuing ourselves highly enough, and then every other aspect of our life will fit in around it. I am extremely lucky, blessed, happy that my 20-year-old self found the right partner. And I know not everybody has had that situation, but you can train your partner to some extent if they're lacking in some area. It's been a lovely 30 years or so for me where I've trained my partner into exactly the person who I want that person to be. You don't just have to accept that these are the roles in the family. It's a wonderful thing to be able to dovetail into somebody's life and to realize that the changes don't have to stop, that you can grow together and you can influence your partner to become even better.
I love that you shared that. It's the whole piece of you teach people how to treat you. So of course it's going to work the same in a relationship. You're training each other. You're telling each other what you like, what your needs are, and you're telling them, hey, this makes me happy, so do more of this.
Yeah, and what's acceptable, because we tolerate things and then we get more of that thing. So if you're always the one
Yeah.
picking up the socks, if you're always the one loading the dishwasher and cleaning it out and doing all of the household chores without tackling that at a base level, then you are going to get more of the same. You can't expect somebody to come in and rescue you. That's called the Cinderella syndrome. Fantastic book by the same name. That will not be happening. We are really treading new ground here, because we are really the first females to be able to have that self-sufficiency, and that can feel in our very core a lack of safety involved there. If we were in the caves and we had our own ideas and it went against the tribe, not only would we be kicked out of the cave, but our children would be kicked out of the cave, and we would have perished. So what has that done? Over the generations, it has honed females to think that they have to stay safe. They have to work within the confines of society or death. All right.
Yeah.
So at some deep level, when we step out of line, we think we're going to be burned at the stake as a witch, or we're going to die, and so will our children. If we take that to the catastrophization aspect of that in our heart, we actually have to talk to ourselves and say, it's okay, you're safe, you can strive, you can step out of the norm. It is fine to move forward instead of backward. You don't have to always cap yourself so that others can shine. You can shine as well.
I love how we ended up here. It's like, I think it just really shows how money is yet again, I'm going to use the word holistic. It's such, it appeals to so many different areas of our life. But I would love to end the episode, Louise, just with a few actionable steps for the listeners, because I feel, especially if we are listening to content like this and maybe we haven't learned or done much of money mindset work, it can feel so overwhelming. Like I know when I first started, you're like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Where do I start? Louise, you've shared so many insights. We've talked about so many stories. So I'd love to ask firstly, so for the woman tuning into this podcast, so how can she begin to change her money beliefs into more wealthy and empowering ones?
The first step I feel is to keep a journal. Articulate all of your money beliefs. So I've got my journal here. For those of you watching along with the video, here it is. It's beautiful. It's like this embossed gold thing. Isn't it gorgeous? It's just gorgeous. This fits into every handbag that I have. And I've also got a larger one. I'll just reach across here so that when I'm not using my little one, I've got my large one here. Similar type of look. Are so pretty, aren't they? They're gorgeous.
Style of journal, actually, I recognize it.
Yeah. I just adore it because this is an object of beauty. It's like a piece of jewelry. If you're listening and not watching, this is like a piece of jewelry. The colors are so vibrant and it is so exotic. And whenever I touch the paper is such good quality. Yeah. It just turns over so perfectly and the ink never runs through. So it is literally a piece of art that I'm holding. Get yourself a piece of art journal that you can write in. Write down your money scripts. Write down every time you feel prickly, that feeling of shrinking when you really do need to expand, and question from an introspective point of view, what is making you shrink? What is the external influence that is making you smaller so that you're safer and you're protecting your internal organs, like you're rolling up into a little ball in case somebody hits you? What is creating that response in you? And if you can fully define that, you are one step ahead, because then you'll be able to mitigate that threat and you will be able to expand, because confidence expands us, and that's where we need to be to excel.
I love that. I always say, I'm not sure if you would agree, like awareness is, I believe, like 90 to 95% done. Like once we're aware of what the problem is, we just got to take the step. But if we're blind and we have no idea what the problem is, but we know we want more, like we just feel like we're walking into a wall in the dark, basically.
I absolutely agree. And if you'd like to continue this journey with me and you'd like to investigate the stock market, come to my website, tradinggame.com.au, because you'll be able to download a free trading plan template, and that trading plan template will be your guide as to how to make money out of the stock market. And I know you're listening to a podcast, so that is fantastic. My podcast is talkingtrading.com.au. So those websites again for the trading plan template, tradinggame.com.au, and my podcast, talkingtrading.com.au. I'm here to help. I do actually want to see you succeed, and I want to hear your story. So as a listener of Isabelle's podcast, congratulations. You're doing what it takes. You're working on yourself, and you're listening to an amazing young mentor who I just adore. Isabelle, you just run a magnificent interview. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you so much for being on the show. And I'll include all those links as well in the show notes for the listeners. And yeah, Louise, this has just been such a beautiful conversation for me to have as well, like selfishly as the podcast host, which means I know that all of our listeners would have so much value. So I'm so grateful for your time and for connecting, considering it was like October last year. And here we are now, almost April, recording. Good things take time.
Oh, look, absolutely. And I think good things are worth a wait. So well done. And I do applaud you. And I am your cheerleader. I'm there cheering you on, Isabelle.
Thank you so much, Louise. I appreciate it so much. Well, thank you everyone for listening to today's episode. And that's all from me in this episode. Here are 3 ways you can contribute to Start Somewhere. Number 1, leave us a 5-star rating and review on either the Spotify and Apple podcast or both. Screenshot this episode and share it to your Instagram stories, tagging me at Isabelle Prestia, that's ISABELLEPRESTIA. And lastly, copy this episode URL and send it to a friend who you think will find value from our conversation. Thank you for starting somewhere.